Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump has indicted Hakeem Jeffries, Stacey Plaskett, and Larry Summers in the court of public opinion. Possible criminal probe pertaining to emails linked directly to Democratic donors in the future, potentially. But hit subscribe to this channel right now. New York Magazine. Will creepy Ep emails be the end of Larry Summers? Deeply ashamed, Larry Summers, ABC News, steps away from public life after Ep emails. ABC News. Okay, so you can go on right here. The New Yorker, the darkest thread in the Ep emails. Okay, so then Fortune. Post-conviction, Jeffrey Ep gave dating advice to Larry Summers. I mean, you can't make this up. Something even more outlandish is the fact that Stacey Plaskett, Congresswoman, was literally texting him in 2019 during a congressional hearing. We'll get to that in a second. And then Hakeem Jeffries, of course, top Democrat, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, was invited to a Dem fundraising, New York Post. A Dem fundraising, Jeffrey Ep was invited to a Dem fundraising dinner to get to know Hakeem Jeffries. Okay, you can't make this up. You just can't make any of this up. New York Post. Jeffrey Ep was invited to get to know Hakeem Jeffries by firm working with Brooklyn's Barack. Okay, so you have a whole bunch of it's all in the news. Let's get to Congresswoman Plaskett. You just can't make it up. She was literally texting Jeffrey Ep during congressional testimony or congressional hearing. Check this out.
Epstein was, and this is incredible, feeding questions to Virgin Island delegate Stacey Plaskett. In fact, let's dive into their correspondence over at The Wall. This was compiled very well by the Washington Post. On a morning of a hearing where the House was questioning Michael Cohen, Plaskett was communicating with Jeffrey Epstein. To be clear, this is years and years after he was convicted in 2008 of soliciting a minor. Plaskett was texting with Epstein that morning, the morning of the hearing that was aired on C-SPAN. She texted with Epstein. He'll talk about his grades. Epstein responded, "What privilege stands behind the non-release of college transcripts?" He then says, "Great outfit. You look great." All caps. Plaskett replied, "Thanks."
You can't even make this up. You just can't make this up. You have Hakeem Jeffries being invited to get to know Jeffrey Ep. You have Congresswoman Plaskett being complimented, saying, "Oh, thanks," and literally texting him. And then, of course, Larry Summers. There's now a Harvard probe into the former Harvard president and Treasury Secretary of Bill Clinton. These are three top Democrats that got caught up in a scandal that they thought would hurt Trump. Almost certainly, President Trump stated he didn't want to release the files, the Ep files, specifically to get these Democrats to think that, oh, we finally have him cornered. But it was always a Democratic Party scandal really quickly. We'll get to more of the text messages. $20,000 to Hillary Clinton. Jeffrey Ep was a very big, one of the largest donors to the Democratic Party. $20,000 to Hillary Clinton. He gave to John Kerry. He gave $22,000 to Chuck Schumer. This is ABC News. $50,000 to, again, Bill Clinton's top official, Energy Secretary Bill Richardson. $50,000. Gave $10,000 to the DCCC. And then he gave $8,100 to Congresswoman Plaskett. Okay, let's continue. This is very interesting. And you can't make it up. Like I'm telling you, you just can't make it up. Hey, nice outfit. You look great. Great outfit. You look great. And then thanks. And then it's Trump that's supposed to be, it's Trump that's supposed to be the villain here. Well, Democrats are pristine and they're getting complimented by Jeffrey Epps. But let's continue. And hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations. $139,000 in donations. He gave donations so he could meet Hakeem Jeffries, so he could converse with Larry Summers. He gave the money so he could be protected by Democrats in New York. Even Vox wrote about that, and CNN wrote about that. That's why you give money, so you can have access and you could be protected. That's why Jeffrey Epps, this scandal that Democrats thought would harm Trump, directly points to them, because they're the ones almost certainly that covered up this man's crimes, or even partook in some of the criminal activity.
It goes on. At 10:41 a.m., Epstein, ever the weirdo, texts her, "Are you chewing?" Plaskett responds, "Not anymore. Chewing interiors of my mouth. Bad habit from middle school." Then Epstein asks when Plaskett's turn for questioning Cohen will come up. And she replies, "Hours. Go to other meetings." But then we get to the meeting. Then we get to her turn. Then we get to the questioning of Cohen. And Epstein tells her, "Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of secrets." Plaskett doesn't know who Rona is. You don't know who Rona is. And Rona's in all caps. So Plaskett responds at 2:25 p.m., "Rona?" Then she says, "Quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym?" Then finally Epstein responds, "That's his assistant." Now listen, this is all of how it played out on text exchange. Now I want to show you the video from a C-SPAN airing. These are time-stamped. So is the C-SPAN time-stamping of that congressional hearing. And you'll see Plaskett look down at her phone as these texts come in and change her questioning, including not knowing the last name of Rona, who she ends up asking about to Cohen.
Ever dreamed of leaving the ground?
Weisenberg and other individuals, Miss Rona. Who are those individuals? As Miss Rona, what is Miss Rona's position?
Rona Graff is Mr. Trump's executive assistant.
And would she be able to corroborate many of the statements that you've made here?
Yes, her office is directly next to his, and she's involved in a lot.
Time-stamped.
Okay, then we know in 2008, a 2008 article, one of America's richest men who holidayed with Prince Andrew, this is a Guardian article, and lent his private jet to Bill Clinton, according to the Guardian. This is a 2008 article. They can't scrub all the public record knowledge, or the public record, the publications, the public record that's already out there. It's a 2008 article. Okay, quote, lent his private jet to Bill Clinton. This is a public record article, 2008, in The Guardian. But here, this is Congresswoman Plaskett, interestingly enough, defending it, stating that he's a constituent. I think is she referencing literally the island? Because that would be very bizarre.
From Jeffrey Epstein, who at the time was my constituent, who was...
What? What? You mean he owned an island? Yes, that's at the heart of all the criminal activity here.
In that hearing. And I got a text from Jeffrey Epstein, who at the time was my constituent, who was not public knowledge at that time that he was under federal investigation. And
it was more than public knowledge. Okay, and then Hakeem Jeffries, the story with the Congressman Jeffries, this is even more bizarre. Check this out.
Year extension.
Peter Jeffries. Why should Americans trust you and House Democrats on the Jeffrey Epstein files when one of your own, Congresswoman Plaskett, was found to be texting with Jeffrey Epstein during a hearing, getting information from him, using that in her questioning during a congressional hearing, and at one point he tells her, "Good job."
This is a bipartisan effort to make sure that, consistent with what the survivors have requested, that there's full and complete transparency, and every single predator who may be in those Justice Department files.
The question was literally about text messages, and also the fact that the New York Post and others have implicated Hakeem Jeffries to possibly meeting Jeffrey Epp. And this is, of course, linked to the $139,000 that Democrats got. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. We'll be back in a couple of hours.